What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to the channel. Christian here again with another video, and this time we got another showcase of a DLC character, Glorio, right here. Now, Glorio is one of the coolest characters to come out of Daima. Bandai had an opportunity to make him really cool and give him some really cool lightning abilities, okay? So did they succeed in my opinion? Well, not exactly. I mean, they almost did, but they didn't quite get there in my opinion. So I'm gonna make this video to showcase the character and what they could have done differently. Okay, so Glorio, like I said, he has lightning power, so they gave him a cool like lightning charge ki blast that paralyzes. Obviously that's a great idea in my opinion, but like I've mentioned before on this channel, what's wrong with these characters is usually their skill abilities. They're usually not creative enough or useful enough to differentiate these characters from other characters in the game and justify the cost of playing them. So what would I have done differently to make Glorio more worth the money is that I would have changed some of those abilities, and I'm going to explain that right now. So his first ability is Spark Bind. Spark Bind just basically just paralyzes the opponent, but in my opinion, why give him Spark Bind when he already has a charge ki blast that paralyzes? It's a little redundant, and then it makes the ability kind of not useful, because why would I spend 2 skill points to paralyze somebody when I could just do it for free with a ki blast, right? So giving a stun ability to a character that can already stun targets with ki blast is pretty dumb in my opinion. So I would probably change that out and give him some sort of defensive skill. The problem is Glorio wasn't really a strong character in the show, so giving him kind of like an explosive wave type ability would be a little off character in my opinion. The only thing I could think of is maybe just add an ability that's kind of like a wild sense ability that on hit would stun the target. So basically it would be like a wild sense, but instead of pushing the opponent away, it would do kind of like a gut punch perception type thing, but instead of obviously being a gut punch, it would just be a stun hit with lightning to make it on theme. And even though that sounds a little broken, you gotta remember you could still evade it the same way you would evade a wild sense, and by this point everybody knows how to evade wild sense. It wouldn't be that broken, and Glorio's damage isn't great, guys. So even if he gets a stun off, doesn't mean he's gonna be doing insane damage to you, because after stun all his damage gets scaled anyways. So it would just give him a defensive option instead of being redundant in his kit with another stun move. Okay, now second, we're going to talk about his buff. So his buff is actually pretty great because they actually combine 2 effects like I mentioned in my other videos. So he gets his ki back and he gets his stats buffed. The only problem with his buff is the same problem that a lot of buffs have. There's no visual representation that the buff is active. It just boosts your stats. And if people don't know about game design, just boosting stats is not enough to make the player feel like they're having an effect on the match. Like, you need to have a visual representation of the buff being active, okay? And what's frustrating to me is that they know this because they did this with Kaioken, with base Goku, but they don't do it with any of the other characters. So for example, here Glorio, what I would do is that once the buff is active, I will give him a different aura. Like, I will give him that purple lightning effect from SS2. I would just color it purple and have it be around his body to indicate that the buff is active and boosting your stats. And then once the buff is done, then the lightning effect can go off to indicate that you don't have the buff active. Just having the little indicators at the top of the screen is not enough visual representation to have the player feel good about using buffs. And that is why a lot of people don't use buffs, is because they don't have enough effect on the actual game. They don't have a visual representation and they just don't feel good to use. But luckily for Glorio, the buff actually does give ki back, which is a huge thing for the game. People always trying to get more ki, so it is a useful buff. It just needs a little bit extra. And if you wanted to be even more creative with that buff, I would make the buff actually give you full momentum. So it would activate that purple aura, and then you would have full momentum on your smash attacks. So your smash attacks will come out quicker, just like they do when you start to get combos in. And if you want to even an extra effect on top of that, then I would make the gut punches in the rush chains actually stun the opponent with lightning. and it wouldn't change the game too much because gut punches already stun you, but just having that lightning effect on your gut punches just makes that buff feel a little bit more powerful, right? It makes you want to use that buff, and it makes you want to use the character as a whole, similar to how early Z Goku makes you feel like Goku, because that Kaioken has that extra aura and that visual representation to indicate that you are buffing your attacks. Okay, now as far as Glorio now, Glorio is a cool character, guys. He's fun to use, and you know I love slow moving Ki Blast because it allows me to play mind games with the opponent. So Glorio having that already makes me like the character. I also like stun Ki Blast. I think stun Ki Blasts are cool. They're fun to use. They're fun to play around. And it's kind of a shame that they have a bad rap in the community because Bandai didn't really test the stun Ki Blast too much, and they left some exploits in the game. But stun Ki Blast as a whole, I think, is a cool mechanic, and I do like the characters that have them. I think they're pretty cool. And Glorio is no different. And now that Z-Burst Dash has been buffed, you can basically throw a charged Ki Blast and then Z-Burst Dash behind it, making the opponent think twice about blocking your Z-Burst Dash because they're going to get hit by that Ki Blast from behind if they're not careful. The one thing I will say is that because Ki Blasts have been nerfed and now they can be deflected while moving, stun charge Ki Blasts have been nerfed compared to pre-patch. But like I mentioned, Glorio doesn't do a lot of damage, so he kind of does need that buff to do meaningful damage. And I think that's cool, but they should have just an extra visual representation for that buff to make that buff feel more powerful, if that is what the gimmick is going to be for this character. Again, similar to early Z Goku with his Kaioken. So right here we're fighting Koopy. Now Koopy, now he talks a lot of smack. He usually messages me after matches, and not only that, he's always laggy, guys. Like this guy, like the game skips. Every time I play this guy, the game is skipping all around. My vanishes don't work, and he's always talking shit. So the other day I wasn't even playing. Whenever I ran into Koopy, I would just close out of the match because I didn't want to play a laggy match. He just kept talking smack. So right after this, I blocked Koopy, so you probably won't be seeing Koopy again on my channel. And it's just because he's too laggy, guys. He needs to get a new router. I don't know what's going on with him. Alright, so in the next match, we're fighting a 3DP Nappa Gogito is his name. Now this guy, I played him a couple times with different characters, but this match was with Nappa specifically, and that's why you saw me dancing around at the beginning of the match, because I had seen him before. So the good thing about Glorio is that he has really good combo chains, so he's really good hand to hand. The only thing is, those combo chains come out kind of slow, so you got to be careful charging them. That's why I think the buff should maybe interact with those chains and make them a little bit faster, just to differentiate when the buff is active, right? But as you see, he's very good with the mind games because he has kicks in the front and he has kicks to follow up his sweeps as well. So you can kind of reset opponents with those kicks. And he has this death beam like super that's pretty fast. So he has good supers, good combat strings. You know, the character's pretty good. He's just missing a little bit extra to kind of differentiate him from the characters that are already in the game. But the current version of Glorio is very usable as a 4DP character. I just believe that he's not quite to Bardock's level, for example, right? So if I were going to pick a character that doesn't have a transformation in the 4DP category, I would probably pick Bardock over this character, just because he has an interesting ability in you know, Shockwave of Rebellion, right? And that's why I think characters like this that are DLC, that don't have transformations, that maybe won't affect the game as much, should have an ability similar to that. They don't have to be quite as powerful, but at least interesting enough that they make the character usable or, you know, popular. Here we go, we're fighting a Frieza. Now I put this match here because it's gonna show off Glorio's ability to kind of mix up opponents. As you see, I'm using them kicks to kind of keep my opponent honest. He can't just hide behind his block strings. And as you see, I got that Z-Burst Dash with that paralyzed Ki Blast. Allows me to play mind games and open my opponent up. And this guy is being very defensive, not engaging too much. Just throw out a super just because, and I get punished for it. Okay. So my buff allows me to get ki back pretty quickly, and that's the good thing about that buff is that ki restore. I think a lot of buffs would benefit from actually giving ki back. It would make buffs a lot more popular. You see, I periodically just throw a charged ki blast to keep them honest. Now you do have to be careful because they can be bounced back, and if they are bounced back, they will stun you. So, and you see my opponents being very defensive with those block screens, kind of hiding behind them. So in that situation, what I recommend is that you mix up your attacks. You don't just keep hitting that block string. What you can do is you can sidestep after normal hits just to keep your opponent honest and restart your combo chain. And you can let off flying kicks after that, and that'll open the opponent back up. Right here, being defensive didn't quite work out for my opponent. He rushes forward, gets hit by a super. That ends the match. What do I think about Glorio? I think he's very close to being a good character. Just needs a little bit extra, similar to a lot of characters that are kind of stuck in their DP tiers with no room to really grow. There's a lot of characters that don't have transformations at 4DP that just can't compete with characters like Superhero Gohan and Team Gohan and the like, or even Bardock for that matter, because Bardock has an actual interesting ability that was creative. And see, if a lot of these characters would get abilities similar to Shockwave of Rebellion, then they could be popular also. It just takes a little bit of extra work. Like I mentioned, that buff is Glorio's kind of gimmick. So I would play into that gimmick. I would make that buff even better. Like I said, I would accelerate his momentum while in buff. I would make his charged gut punch actually stun the opponent. I would give him an aura to differentiate when the buff is active, and that would make that buff a lot more fun to use, similar to Kaioken with early Z Goku. And it wouldn't break the game because Glorio is a very weak character, you know, as far as damage is concerned. So just giving him those extra abilities would just make the character more fun to use without actually breaking the 4DP meta. He still wouldn't get picked over Gohan or Bardock or anything like that, but it would just make the character a little more saucy, a little more fun to play, and it just takes a little bit more effort to do so. And you know, it's kind of a shame because Bandai even delayed the DLC and they still kind of under-delivered with characters like Glorio. So if you like this video, go ahead and like and sub. Wait for the next one, and peace out.
手加減ができなかった。怪我はないか。